Welcome back to the EFA Podcast. I'm Drew. I'm here with Marc and Mattias.
Hello. Hello.
Um, yeah, so we're already in week 16. I think we're just gonna get right into it, and we're gonna start off with some college, because why not? So on Sunday afternoon, the College Football Playoff Committee gave us the four teams that would be participating in the college football playoffs, and they are Alabama, Clemson, and Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. And we also received what the New Year's Six bowl games are going to be, but we'll talk about those next week. So I think we're just gonna start off with the playoff games. We're gonna start off with Alabama and Notre Dame.
Um, I'll start this one off, I guess. And I feel like out of all these teams, Notre Dame, they are probably the weakest one. Not saying they're a weak team, just compared to the other three. They're the I can't think of what it's called. They're the golden slipper, the Cinderella story. They're the Cinderella story out of all these teams, and I mean, especially going against the juggernaut of Alabama. I don't see them winning this one, so I'm gonna have to take Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. I have Alabama as well. Alabama I think has like three Heisman contenders in Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and Mac Jones. And I mean, of course, it's Alabama, and they just kind of they just have like a winning culture about them. So yeah, I think that it. I don't think it's going to be that close of a game. I think Alabama takes it by more than a score.
Yeah, I think this one should be easy, and Alabama is they're the clear cut best team in America right now. And I mean they have, like you said, Matthias, they have three Heisman front runners with Harris, Smith, and Jones. And Notre Dame, on Notre Dame's side, they just lost to Clemson by 24 points. And in my opinion, Bama is a lot, not a lot better, but they're definitely better than Clemson is. So I don't see it being a close game at all. Yeah, I think it'll be a blowout. So moving on, Clemson and Ohio State, and I'm gonna take this one because I'm an Ohio State fan. But I think this is gonna be a blowout one way or the other, and I'm leaning towards Clemson, but I have to kind of stay true to Ohio State, so I'm gonna take Ohio State. And like Justin Fields hasn't looked great, like he hasn't looked like he looked last year. Over the like I think they played 6 games, and the defense has been pretty beaten up. Obviously, they lost Chase Young to the draft last year. They lost Okuda and David Arnett, just to name a few guys. And that last week in the Big Ten champ game, they barely beat Northwestern. They were also missing 22 players due to COVID. So if they can get at least some of those guys back, including Chris Olave, who's one of their top wide receivers, um, I think Dabo Swinney's kind of looked at them as not a top 10 team, so I think they may overlook them, and I think Ohio State's gonna get it.
As much as I hate to say this, I'm gonna have to agree with Drew. Not the biggest Ohio State fan, but I definitely think they're gonna be the better team in this situation, and I think they'll be able to pull out a win.
I disagree. I think, sorry, Drew, but I think Clemson's going to win. Back to what he said, Justin Fields has been kind of, I mean, he started off the year really well, but he's been kind of a lot of turnovers lately. And I just think, you have Trevor Lawrence in this game, and I'm not like I guess I'm a Trevor Lawrence believer in the case that I think he's a good QB, and I think he'll do well in the NFL. But I'm not like I don't quite buy into him as much as most people do. But I still think that that's obviously a huge factor, and I think that with him and ETN, their offense is pretty unstoppable, and they'll be able to beat Ohio State's crippled defense.
Yeah, like I said, I think it can. I think it can go either way, but I had to lean towards Ohio State. So yeah, again, we'll probably do predictions for the New Year's Six games next week. Um, and those games are, I'll give you the games now. That's gonna be Oklahoma, Florida, in the Cotton Bowl, Cincinnati and Georgia in the Peach Bowl, Iowa State, Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl, Texas A&M and North Carolina in the Orange Bowl, and then the two playoff games are also New Year's Six. So yeah, so moving on, I think I just want to talk because this is kind of like the big headline coming out of this week was the Jets got the first win against the Rams, and it was 23-20, so it was kind of close, but and like before we get into like that Trevor Lawrence campaign with between the Jets and the Jaguars, I want to talk about the Rams and what this means for them. And I don't know, like I know you guys have definitely had them like, oh, they can may make a run for a Super Bowl, or they're the one team that can beat the Chiefs. So I don't know. I'm interested to see from you guys, like, what do you guys think this does for LA?
Well, first things first. I mean, I wouldn't say they were the only team who I thought could beat the Chiefs, but they were definitely one. I mean, after losing to the New York Jets, who are basically on a full-on tank, and I mean, they're literally having like Frank Gore, a man older than time itself, be one of your starting running backs. I don't see that being a going for a win there. And I mean, the Rams, if they won, didn't they clinch their division? I
No, I think.
I could be.
Oh, if they
I
won,
think I'm thinking
if
of a
they
different.
won, they could have maybe. I'd have to go
Yeah,
look
but
back and
Seattle
look,
won.
but Seattle won, so
Yeah,
and they lost, so I think they're both 10-5, if or no,
yeah.
or 9-5, no, 10-4 or something. Yeah, go, keep going.
Anyways, so I mean, it's just kind of like unacceptable. Basically, I should say for the Rams to even be losing this game, and I mean, kind of like I'm lost for words because it's like it's one of those games that like you always know there's gonna be one game, each week that's gonna be a huge upset, and this was not the game I expected to be the upset. In the game I did think that would be the upset. Maybe we'll get into that later. Talk about the Steelers a bit. I expected that to happen, but I did not expect this to happen. So, Mattias, you have anything to add?
I mean, I just wanted to say, well, I think Seattle has one more win than the Rams do because they're the division leaders right now. But
Not all Seattle
think-
fanboys, Mattias.
I think that it was a trap game because next week they have a game against Seattle, which probably determines the division. They're definitely like, I don't know. It just seems like a week where they're like, okay, we're playing the Jets. We don't really have to try that hard. Let's just start watching film on Seattle or something like that. I mean, it was a close game. I didn't watch the game, but I'm assuming they had offensive troubles because they were playing the Jets defense and only had 20 points. But yeah, I just think that it was a trap game, and obviously it hurts their stock. Like if we made a power rankings, they'd probably go down like 5 or 6 spots at least. But I haven't like given up on them because I still think it might have been a wake up call, and they might start doing even better now.
Yeah, that's I kind of agree with that. I think like Mark said it. It was an unacceptable loss for the Rams, and Sean McVay kind of had something to say about that as well after the game. But that like if that does that hurt their like it does it hurt their chances to make a run for the Super Bowl? I think so because like now that kind of gives me the same kind of trust issues that I have with Seattle, where like they're not gonna show up when you need it most. So
I feel like that's either going to happen, or what I feel like is teams are going to go up against them in the playoffs. Be like, oh, this is the team that lost to the New York Jets. we're gonna steamroll them, and next thing you know, the team that they're facing would get steamrolled. So I mean, I think it's either gonna be they're gonna be overlooked or like out just looked at perfectly. I guess you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that when they made the run to the Super Bowl, I think that one thing I've been forgetting is that they had Todd Gurley, so Jared Goff didn't really need to be.
That Todd
Like,
that was the year that Gurley was hurt, and he only got like 8 or something touches in the playoffs total. And that was C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson was like the tank. That was that year.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah, I do remember that. But yeah, I meant the run game was better.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jared Goff, he has to do a little bit more now.
Yeah, and like with the run game, Cam Akers kind of showed out 2 weeks ago against New England with like 170 yards or something, and I'm pretty sure he got hurt this week, and he's not playing next week, so it's gonna be huge for Jared Goff. It's gonna be a huge game for Jared Goff if they want to win. And then I want to move on real quick because yeah, we'll just move on. So like I'm starting to think if the Jets win was really a loss for them because they're probably going to miss out on one of the best cute quarterback prospects of all time in Trevor Lawrence. So like I don't know if if the draft positions hold, they're at 2, and I don't know. I was starting to think that maybe you trade back out of the spot because I don't know. I don't know if I'd rather take Justin Fields over a Sam Darnold. Like Sam Darnold's a good quarterback, and I think it's more a problem with the coaching. And I don't know, maybe trade back and get some more help for Darnold, but I don't know. You really won't get a good wide receiver from in a trade. So like you'd have to trade back to get something else and then draft a good wide receiver. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. So yeah.
My thoughts as well here is it's like we've seen their team and we've seen how Sam Darnold I thought was pretty decent coming in and could have helped turn the Jets around. And for all we know, Trevor Lawrence could be just like Sam Darnold, where he's trying his best. He just has absolutely no help from the coach and his wide receivers, even his O-line. And he just gets ampled in and becomes like one of them. And I mean, I feel like if they're going to get Trevor Lawrence, they're also going to have to go in a bit more, try to get maybe a few more draft picks, get some offensive line, or maybe even a high-end or mid-round talent that they could develop to help them out.
Yeah, I was texting Hayden and Drew about it a little bit ago, but I think that for Trevor Lawrence, it's kind of a win because Jacksonville, the Jets' offense is like completely devoid of talent, and Jacksonville has it has DJ Chark, it has wide receiver that I'm blanking on the name of that came out this year.
Laviska Shenault.
Yeah, Laviska Shenault. It has Robinson. So he's better set up to succeed immediately in Jacksonville, even though the O-line's not good. And, it's not a great situation. It's just better, I think, so.
Yeah, and I kind of like Justin Fields. I don't know how much if in the Jets position. I don't know how much I'd trust Justin Fields. Like, kind of going back to what I was saying. Like, I don't know how much I trust Justin Fields. Like, he's kind of unproven in the NFL when Sam Darnold has proven he can win games when like with a decent offense. Like last year's offense was decent. It wasn't good by any means, but it was a lot better than it was this year. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. So unless you guys have anything else, Mattias, if you want to start off with the top 3 players of the week.
Yeah, so my 3 is Josh Allen. He had 359 passing yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, I believe, 2 over the ground, and 114.5 passer rating. And he's obviously come to his own this year, and I think that he's just he looks like a completely different player. I think I've probably said this like 4 or 5 times before on the podcast, but he just he throws just so much better, and the Bills wins the division, and happy for the fans because it's been a while, but yeah, I mean they had a statement game, and I think they're probably my favorite team in the AFC. That's not the Chiefs. So
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think Josh Allen's kind of proven he can be an MVP this year. Although kind of Rodgers and Mahomes are both above him in my opinion. But my three is David Montgomery, running back for the Bears. He had 32 rushes, 146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And it was the second week in a row he kind of ran all over at defense. Last week with Houston. Last year he was kind of disappointing. I think he was a second round pick. He could have been a first, but I think he was second. Um, but he's finally coming out of that shell that he was in last year, and I think, and I don't know how much of it is Mitch Trubisky right now and how much of it is him, considering over the past 2 games like that those have been his 2 breakout games, but Trubisky's also been playing well. So I mean, with them two, if they keep playing like this, they might even lead them to the playoffs. So I put them at 3.
Hey, yeah, I honestly kind of want to see Chicago sneak into the playoffs. If I'm being honest, try to see them make a good story for themselves, try to win a Super Bowl. I mean, it's very unlikely, but we can all hope. Anyways, my third is probably not surprised to many people is Derrick Henry, who, as we mentioned, basically in top 3 by one of us almost every week. He had 147 rushing yards, a touchdown, and put a man 6 feet under with a stiff arm yet again. And I mean, dude's just an animal, and I feel like he's evolving like a Pokemon, and he just keeps evolving into just a playoff form, and then he just wreaks havoc. So I mean, it's very entertaining to watch, and I mean, his performance just deserves a top 3 selection.
Yeah, that's definitely, like you said, he's pretty much in one of ours every week, and he was very close to making mine this week, but he did not. And then yeah, so Mark, if you want to move on to 2 now.
All right, next up I have Mattias' third, which is Josh Allen. And the reason I put him above Derrick Henry is he didn't just have a fantastic game with the throwing the ball. He also looks like one of the top-end running backs in the league with 2 rushing touchdowns. And I mean, there was nothing. Can I think of who they played?
Denver.
The Broncos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing Denver could have done to stop him, and I feel like even how injured their defense is, it's still a pretty decent defense. I mean, he was just finding everything and every way to score. Plus, not to mention, there was a 5 minutes where they basically scored 3 times, and it got called back because of flags, and they were still able to score. So I just felt like he deserved the number 2 spot.
So yeah, I have DeForest Buckner at 2. He had 3 sacks and a forced fumble. And first off, how did he not make the Pro Bowl? I'd say he's like a top 3 interior defender. I mean, I feel like he is kind of the main reason the Colts have changed into like a top 3 to 5 defense. And I don't know how he didn't make the Pro Bowl. I mean, 3 sacks is a great game. And the forced fumble, but I guess I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, the Pro Bowl selections were not very good this year, but
Yeah, they were.
It is what it is. So my 2 is Kyler Murray. He went 27 for 36, 406 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have an interception, but he also rushed 8 times, had 29 yards, and also had a touchdown on the ground. And I think this week he proved that he should be an MVP candidate again. And the 1 interception I don't think should take away from that. And I honestly think that him and Jalen Hurts probably gave us the game of the week from last week, with a 1-score game and came down to the final seconds. So It was a great game from Kyler.
Yeah.
Great QB duel.
Yeah. All right. So my one is Jalen Hurts, who I just mentioned. He had 24. He went 24 for 44, 338 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and also ran it 11 times for 63 yards, and had a touchdown on the ground as well. And I was back on fourth. I was going back and forth between him and Kyler for who I should put at number one, and I put him at one because he didn't have an interception. He did not have an interception, but he didn't have an interception, and he also did better on the ground. But Kyler did win the game, so that's kind of why I was going back and forth. And like I said earlier, it was probably the most entertaining game of last week. So I think Jalen Hurts is definitely the real deal and definitely the answer for Philly for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my one is Ryan Tannehill. He had 273 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. I believe 2 touchdowns over the ground as well, and 145.8 passer rating. And yeah, I mean, with Derrick Henry on their offense, I think he's a little overlooked. He's a lot better than he was at Miami. And I think that, without him, I think he's a really good game manager, and that, their offense, he's definitely like a key part of their offense, and I think he showed that this last week with a great game.
Yeah. My number one, just to get into it, because it is also Ryan Tannehill. I mean, I've been a big fan of him ever since he went to the Titans, especially watching the playoffs. I feel like him and Derrick Henry were probably two of the biggest main reasons they even were able to make it as far as they did. I mean, Titans are just crazy to watch because you got a madman of Derrick Henry on the ground, but then you totally forget how well Ryan Tannehill has been playing. And I feel like that comeback player of the year award he got last year, he's really showing why he earned it. And I mean, he's just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's kind of similar to Jared Goff in, what was it, 2018, with the run game being very good. So it might get pass game might get overlooked come playoff time, but I mean it should very well should. And we kind of had some good variety this week with the pick. Like we all didn't have the same top three, so that was good. All right, so moving on to picks, Mattias, you want to start with the Christmas Day game?
Yeah, on Christmas, it's Vikings versus Saints, and I mean, I feel like maybe it's not the most obvious game in the world, but I still think it's a pretty easy game to pick. I have the Saints, and Drew Brees. It, I think he really picked it up towards the end of the Chiefs game. There, he had like one final drive that I watched where he was just moving the ball, and I think that the Saints are one of the better teams in the NFC, and the Vikings, though, I think it will be a good game because the Vikings are pushing for a playoff spot right now, and it's incredibly unlikely at this point, but I still think that it's possible, and they know that, and they're going to be trying their hardest. So I think they'll give the Saints a good game, but the Saints will just end up winning.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm gonna take. Okay, I'll take this one. All right.
I guess
I'll take it. All right.
All
So
right.
So New Orleans is they're still fighting for the first round bye, and Minnesota is also still kind of fighting for a playoff spot. But I think this game, I think Green Bay pretty much has the one seed locked up unless something drastic happens. But I think I like even this game will be a step in the right direction for New Orleans, and both Minnesota and New Orleans are on 2-game losing streaks, but New Orleans has played far better teams than Minnesota has, and with Philly and Kansas City, and then Minnesota played Tampa Bay and Chicago. But I think New Orleans is gonna get the Christmas Day win here.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with both of y'all. I think it's gonna be a good game, especially just from the past, how the Vikings have always given the Saints a tough time. I mean, with the playoff win last year and the Minnesota Miracle a few years ago. I feel like when these two teams come together, it's always going to be a good game, especially with both these teams have a lot on the line. For instance, as we said, the Saints with their trying to clinch the bye, and Vikings just trying to fight for a chance to even be in the playoffs. So I think it will be one of the better games of the week.
Yeah, and next we have the Bucks versus the Lions. I have the Bucks. I think that the Lions, I mean, I feel like they're just kind of a sorry franchise right now, and I think that the Bucks, it's kind of weird that the Bucks said to have a big comeback game against the Falcons, but I mean they did it, and uh, they've been. It feels like maybe they've been piecing stuff together lately. Like I feel like if they had gotten that far behind against the Falcons in the beginning of the year, I don't think they would have come back. But yeah, I think that the Bucks will probably have an easy win, and if it's not an easy win, I would definitely add even more worry to what they're worrying about come playoff time.
Yeah.
I gotta agree. I'm also happy that I just want to say something real quick. I'm just happy that Mattias is finally coming along to starting to believe in the Bucks. I mean, not exactly a bandwagon, but I do think they'll make a deep playoff run. I feel like Mattias does not see that happening, so it's kind of nice to see how the turntables are turning. So yeah. Well, Mike Scott quote for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't doubt Tom Brady, and hopefully that's the last time I have to say it. But Detroit is not a good team, although they probably should be, as like I explained last week. And I just think at the end of the day, Tampa's high-powered offense is going to be too good for Detroit's defense, and Tampa's going to get it done.
Yeah, and next there's the 49ers versus the Cardinals. And I have the Cardinals. I think that the 49ers had that win against the Rams. They kind of surprised everyone, but I think that's just Kyle Shanahan just kind of, knowing the Rams very, very well. And I think that the Cardinals are different this year than they have been over the past couple of years, and I think that also the Cardinals know that Chicago and Minnesota could take their playoff spot if they lose these last couple games. And so I think they'll go in, like in the mindset that they have to win and that they'll get it done.
Yeah. I have to agree. I think Arizona's gonna win. And I'm pretty sure with the Chicago loss and an Arizona win, I think Arizona clinches it. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to check, but I'd assume they're gonna know that, and they're gonna do everything they can to secure it. So I trusted a beaten up San Fran team last week against a beaten up Dallas team, and they couldn't even do that. And if they couldn't beat an Andy Dalton led team in 2020, I don't think they're gonna be able to beat a good healthy Arizona team. So I got Arizona.
Yeah, I also have to agree with you guys. I'm going to go with Arizona. I don't think they can beat the injury-riddled 49ers, and I feel like they have much more on the line than the 49ers do with it. To make the playoffs for the 49ers, I feel like we're just fighting for draft position at this point.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, maybe they kind of want to rise in the draft a little bit so maybe they can pick one of the top 4 QB prospects, depending on how they feel about Garoppolo. I don't know. But next, there's the Dolphins and the Raiders. I have the Dolphins winning. I think that, the Raiders just came off of a loss to the Chargers, and I called it, and you guys will say I was crazy, but I think that
Still are.
I think that the Raiders really have really really fallen off, um, and I think that the Dolphins again. I feel like pretty much all of my games I said this, but the Dolphins are kind of there with the Ravens and just the rest of the AFC wildcard teams fighting for those three spots, and they need to win this game so that they can still have that buffer between them and the Raiders and the Ravens. And I think that again they know that they'll be trying to win, and I think that their defense is just going to make. It's Marcus Mariota, right?
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota turned the ball over.
Yeah, I agree. I also have Miami. And this is, in my opinion, this is the game of the week. This is the game that I'm gonna want to watch, and because Vegas is eliminated with a loss, and Miami is still fighting for the 7 seed. So, yeah, it's gonna be a good game. But in my opinion, Vegas is not as good as they are they're not as good with Marcus Mariota as they are with Derek Carr. Even though Marcus Mariota kind of showed out last week against Vegas and almost led them to a win, but they couldn't. But they really haven't been good since they lost to Kansas City in Week 11, I think it was. And Miami, on the other hand, have won games they should have won, and they've lost games they should have lost, and they've really been like the definition of consistency. And I think they're gonna be a scary team come playoff time, and they're already a scary team to play now, and I feel like we've said it almost every episode that Miami's gonna be scary, but yeah, I mean you gotta put it in there.
I gotta agree with both you guys. I think Miami will take it. I gotta agree with Drew here. I think this will be game of the week. I mean, both teams are fighting for a lot here. I feel like Raiders have not been the same a while. I feel like they hit a high level when they beat the Chiefs, and then they lost to the Chiefs, and they hit a low level. I mean, kind of just been bouncing between those levels throughout the games. But I feel like you said, Miami is literally the definition of consistency this year, so I think they're going to take it.
Yeah, next we have the Browns and the Jets game. The Jets got a win last week, but I still feel like they're the team where you can confidently say they'll lose. And I have the Browns. Baker has been very good lately. And they have their duo rushing attackers healthy, and their defense is playing pretty good recently. And I think that it should hopefully be an easy game for them.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think Cleveland's easily the better team, and I don't think the Jets' win last week should fool you. The Rams kind of needed that kick in the ass, and they got it. And the Jets are they're trying to lose right now. They want Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know about you, but I would rather take Trevor Lawrence than a 3-13 season at this point. And Cleveland, like I said, is a very good team. They're probably one of the hotter teams in the league right now, and I would say, yes, it's a trap game for them considering New York just came off that win, but I don't think they're going to lose to a one-win team, and they're going to continue to creep up on Pittsburgh.
I gotta agree. I think it'd be nice to see the Browns steal the spot from the Steelers. I think that would be probably the perfect ending to the season, if I'm being honest, for just memes and normal sports. I'm really hoping they get the win, and I feel like part of that is on me to have them win. But then again, they're also playing the New York Jets, so I mean, I feel like you guys covered it all. So go Browns! All right, I'm gonna start them off now. The first game I have is Giants Ravens, and I feel like this is gonna be a very big game. Both teams are fighting for playoffs. I mean, Giants fighting to lead their division, and the Ravens fighting for last playoff spot, which I think all of us would agree that the Ravens could probably steal the Colts spot, if not the Ravens, the Dolphins. But went off a big win against Jacksonville. I just feel like they're the better team here. I know the Giants are one game away now, right?
I think they're one game. Yep.
Yeah, one game away from Washington. So I mean, both these teams are in a pretty good spots right now, but I think the Ravens are going to be able to take the win.
Yeah, again, I mean, there's a ton of games that are playoff fights this week, but I also think that the Ravens will win. Lamar's been playing pretty great recently, and just their rush attack has been doing great recently, and I think that it. I think that the Giants are. I think that right now the Washington football team looks like the better team, and I'd say that they're probably not going to end up catching up to them, and I think that the Ravens will win this week.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think Baltimore's also going to win. And like the AFC North is slowly becoming one of the best divisions to watch. Like one team has already clinched the playoffs, and two more are on track to make it. And on the Giants side, they got that one win over Seattle, and they really haven't done anything since. And they like after that, they were looking like, oh, they're probably the NFC East favorite now, because every team in that division is so bad. And then after that, they literally haven't done anything. So I don't expect them to start it up again. And Baltimore is also, I think Baltimore's going to win. They're also going to start to creep up on Pittsburgh.
All right, next game is yeah, Bengals and the Texans, and I mean this is just as I like to call it, a tank game because this is basically just for a draft position. So I feel like in a way, whoever wins this game is actually the loser. But I think it's gonna be the Texans. I just think they're the better team here. I mean, I know Cincinnati's coming off a huge win against the Steelers from last night for at least for us, and I mean, I feel like they could try to ride that wave, but honestly, I feel like that game was a fluke. And as much as I dislike the Steelers, I feel like that was just a lucky night for the Bengals. I mean, their defense definitely did show up. I personally just think the Texans will be able to win.
Yeah, I agree. I hopefully the Texans will win for the Bengals because again, I feel like if the Bengals won one or two of their last two games and they missed out on Penei Sewell, that would be another thing come draft time where we're like, well, like right now we're all talking about how the Jets are going to miss out on Trevor Lawrence because they won that game, and there's just really no point to winning games for them right now. So I think that even if they did try, the Texans look like a better team, and I think that the just I think that Deshaun Watson will probably have a pretty decent game, and that the Bengals will lose, and like Mark said, it's probably good for them.
Yeah, I also have Houston, and I think similar to the Jets win, the Bengals win from last week, it shouldn't fool anyone. Like Houston is still the better team, and Deshaun Watson, if the Texans weren't 4-10, Deshaun Watson would probably be in the talks for MVP right now, and I think Deshaun's gonna have another great game this week against not a great Bengals defense. I mean, if they play like they played last night, then I mean, who knows what could happen. But I expect Houston to win this game.
Yeah. Next up is Bears Jacksonville. I mean, I gotta go with the Bears. I feel like Jacksonville at this point in time is just playing every team that's trying to sneak into the playoffs. So I mean, honestly, they're just going to be tanking, hoping to try to steal Trevor Lawrence from the Jets. And I think the Bears will just get a free victory here unless Mitch Trubisky goes back to his old form earlier this season and somehow just throws 900 picks. I don't see that happening, so I think the Bears will take this one with ease.
Even if Mitch Trubisky does go back to his old form, I would think that the Bears are going to win. Dave Montgomery has been great lately, and Jacksonville is another defense that you can expect for him, or not expect, but you can at least think ahead of time that it's a very real possibility he could go off again. And now Jacksonville has the first pick, and don't screw that up, and don't win this meaningless game. And I think that Chicago should have a pretty easy win.
Yeah, I agree. I also have Chicago, and I'm back to calling Jacksonville that trap team once again, and am I going to pick them? No, but they're the team that can win a game, but they're not going to. And Chicago has been very good in the past 2 weeks. Trubisky has looked good with a 4-1 touchdown interception ratio. They beat two decent teams in Houston and Minnesota, and I expect them to keep it up with an easy win against Jacksonville. And honestly, if Jacksonville plays like the Colts or the Titans this week, like I think they beat I think they try and beat them because I mean they're a rival. You don't want to see them in the playoffs, and that would just be like a team that would be a game you'd want to win just to knock a rival out of playoff contention. But they're not. They're playing Chicago, so I agree. I think they shouldn't try to win this game at all.
Yeah. I mean, you basically got everything there. It's down. But next up is the Falcons versus the Chiefs. And, after seeing the Falcons yet again choke away another victory and going up against the juggernaut of the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs will take this with ease, walk all over the Falcons. And I mean, I feel like the Falcons' defense has just been a big problem for them throughout the last few seasons. I mean, they look good, and then once the second quarter comes around, they just start to crumble. And I mainly blame their defense for that. So, I mean, their offense has yet to struggle to get points going in the second half, but I feel like it's more to blame on their defense for just shutting down early. I just got to go with the Chiefs against the choking birds.
I agree. I have to say that the Chiefs are probably the easy pick, but I do think that maybe we're starting to see like some holes in their armor or something because they have won. I think I saw their last 6 games by 1 score or less, or yeah, 1 score or less, and I think that they're not quite as perfect as we all think they are, and they're still in my mind the favorite. I still don't think anyone can really play better offense than them when Mahomes is in playoff form. But yeah, I think it should be an easy game this week for them, and hopefully they break that streak of only winning by 1 score.
Yeah, I agree. I also have Kansas City, and even with like the holes in the armor, like if they're maybe not as perfect as we think they are, I still think they're the best team in the league, and this game is really a no-brainer for me. And like maybe it's possible that Atlanta puts up a fight, but even if they do, they're probably just gonna fall apart in the fourth quarter and lose big time. So I'm gonna take Kansas City as well.
So the next game is Pittsburgh Colts, and I think this could rival the Dolphins Raiders game for best game of the week because we got the Colts trying to fight for a top of their division. Same thing with Pittsburgh. I mean, 4 losses in a row. That is just going 11-0 to losing 4 in a row.
Three,
just,
three.
I feel like unacceptable.
3 in a row.
Yeah, sorry. Well, if they lose this, it would be 4.
Yeah.
I mean, lose this game. I feel like there's playoff dreams aren't over, but their Super Bowl hope is over. And I mean, coming off the loss to Cincinnati, I think they'll be hungry. The offense will try to get together more, but I mean, going up against this Colts defense, it will just be really fun to see that receiving core and that Colts defense go up against each other. But I think in the end, I'm just going to have to take the Colts here. Mainly because of their defense, and I don't know why, but I have a hunch that Philip Rivers is just going to have one of his greatest games of all time and just drive his team home to a big win.
Yeah, I think that the Steelers are going to. Obviously, they've heard everything everyone's saying about them. I think that they're, they know that they need to win for the top spot in the division, and I think that Ben Roethlisberger, his name has been dragged through the dirt recently, I guess you could say, and I think that they're going to have a chip on their shoulder and that they're going to be able to, match up with the Colts defense and, you, have a better game than they did against the Bengals at least. So, but I have the Steelers. I think it's going to be a good defensive battle.
Yeah, I also have the Steelers, and honestly, I probably should have picked Indianapolis here, but I've picked Pittsburgh probably every week we've done a podcast because they've played such weak teams, and I feel like now that they're losing, once I stop, they're gonna win. So I gotta pick Pittsburgh again, and like they haven't proved to me that they can beat teams with no quarterback, and Phillip Rivers is a good quarterback, so it's kind of like it's 50-50 for me, but I think Big Ben's gonna be able to bounce back from the past 2-3 weeks, and they're gonna look to clinch the AFC North this week with a playoff win, and yeah. All right, so I think that wraps it up for your game. So Carolina and Washington, and I'm really interested to see what happens with the QB position for Washington because I think Alex Smith is still hurt. I don't know if he's gonna be able to play this week. And then Dwayne Haskins got caught in a strip club with no mask, so he's getting he's getting disciplined right now. So I don't know who's gonna start. I honestly don't think if it's Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins. Either way, I think Washington's gonna win this game, and they're obviously probably the favorite to win the NFC East, although crazier things have happened and they could end up losing that. But I expect them to get a big win here, and I think they'll prove to everyone that they're not going to be a team you want to play come playoff time.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Drew here with Washington. I mean, their quarterback situation is tough, and I mean, depending on either Alex Smith or Haskins plays, I gotta agree. I think they'll be able to pull out a win. But if some no names just gonna show up, I think they will not be able to. I don't think their defense is good enough to win games by itself, especially with no help from the offense. So Carolina has looked on and off. I mean, almost was able to pull out a big win, well, a huge upset against Green Bay. But after that game, I think they're going to be tired and not going to be able to keep up. So I got to go with the football team.
I agree. Yeah, I would pick the football team as well. I think that the defense has been great lately, and Carolina, another team that's kind of fallen off a cliff. And I mean, they looked pretty good at the beginning of the season. Maybe not quite a playoff team, but now I think they're another team that might be thinking like, at this point, Teddy has shown he is the Panthers' bridge QB. He's not the franchise guy, and I think that in a historically great QB class, or what's looking like it might be, they might be trying to get a little bit higher so that they can pick one of the guys that they want, whoever that may be. But
yeah. All right, moving on. So we got Denver and Denver versus the LA Chargers, and I think Herbert's going to be able to lead LA to a win here. Drew Lock has been severely underwhelming to say the least, but I mean, and he's also been very inconsistent, which means he could throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and win, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Herbert and the Chargers are going to be able to get their second win in a row.
I gotta agree with you here. I feel like Denver has been too inconsistent. I mean, so has LA in a way, but I feel like Justin Herbert is just the better quarterback out of both of them, and I'll feel like they'll be able to win.
I agree. I think that the Broncos are, I think to the Drew Lock talk, I think that I think he's gonna get another year. Whether he takes advantage of that, I don't know, but I think that he's probably not going to have like a big game this week, and that Justin Herbert will get the better of the team this time after probably another great game after the Raiders.
Yeah. All right. And then next we got the Rams and the Seahawks, and I'm gonna take LA. And like I said earlier, the I don't think the loss to the Jets should fool anybody. And the Rams got the kick in the ass they needed, as I said, and they'll come back better than ever this week. And I think they'll look like probably the scariest team in the NFC. And I think it was Mark who kind of said that this is gonna kind of start the fire in them, and they're gonna look like they can beat everyone in the league by 40 points. And I think they're gonna win. They're gonna beat Seattle. And I think they're gonna win big. And maybe that fire, like I said, and maybe the fire that the Jets loss gave them, that maybe that takes them to a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
You can go, Mattias.
all right, yeah. So, I think that again, like after the loss to the Jets, I think that maybe they're even scarier coming into this week because you're like, well, they're angry now. Like one of the best players in the league, Aaron Donald, like really wants to win, and he's going up against a horrible offensive line. And I just think that I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be kept close. But I think that LA will probably end up winning. But I have noticed when I do the Seahawks picks, I'm pretty pessimistic. I feel like it. I just want to set myself up to be like okay with a loss, I guess.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you guys. I think the Rams are gonna come into this one, gonna take the win. I mean, I feel like they're gonna probably have one of their best games. They're gonna come off a loss to probably the worst team in the league. They're gonna be angry. They're gonna be hungry. I mean, it's a huge game for him, especially against the Seahawks, because it will help decide who will take the lead in that division. So I mean, again, another game that I can see being one of the best of the week. I mean, we've seen a lot. I feel like that happens around playoff time. A lot of these games matter to who gets in and who's out, but I think the Rams are just going to be hungry, and I feel like this might be the week here where we see a whole new Rams team come out and just tear ass up.
Yeah, yeah. I think I do think I'm pretty sure Seattle clinches the NFC West with a win here, and LA would just take the lead with a win and they'd have to win next week as well. Um. Anyway, moving on, we got Philly and Dallas, and I think Dallas's win last week was a fluke. They played well, but like not well enough to convince me that they can beat the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts he's looked really good, and he almost led the Eagles back to a win against Arizona last week. And like I've mentioned before, that was probably the best game to watch last week. And I think Hurts is gonna light up Dallas's defense and get a 20+ point win. And yeah, so Philly's gonna get that one.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I feel like out of all the teams, Dallas probably the lowest one in that division. I mean, it's a pretty low division, but I feel like Philadelphia, the Giants, and the football team have all been able to step up their game plans and how they play. And I feel like the Cowboys never have, and that's really affecting them in the long term. So I think, especially with how Jalen Hurts is playing, I gotta go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I have to say too. I think that Philly has looked pretty great with Hurtson, and I think that I think that they're gonna have. I think it'll still be a pretty decent game because Andy Dalton has shown he can be competitive. I guess that he can still be competitive in this league, but I just think that Philly, are they out of contention yet for the NFC East title? I don't think
No,
so.
every team in the NFC East can still get in one way or the other.
Champ. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that they'll probably be trying to make a final push to overtake Washington. Um, yeah, I think it could still be a decent game, though.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on, Sunday Night Football, Tennessee and Green Bay, and this is going to be a shootout. It's going to be It's instead of Ryan Tannehill versus Aaron Rodgers, it's probably going to be Derrick Henry versus Aaron Rodgers. I think Henry's going to run all over Green Bay's defense, but I think Aaron Rodgers is also going to torch the Titans secondary. And like the Titans secondary haven't really proven much to me this year. Like they have Kevin Byard and Malcolm Butler. Like those are the two names that come to mind. I think Adoree Jackson's playing. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but like they really haven't proven to me that they can be that they're going to be able to stop like guys like Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and even Robert Tonyan's kind of proven to be a good tight end this year. And I honestly I think that's going to be the deciding factor, and I think Rodgers is going to throw the ball better than Henry will run it.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you here. I think this will be a very offensive shootout, very one-sided, high-scoring game, and I feel like I think Rogers' passing game is 10 times better than Tannehill's, and I feel like the better offense is on Green Bay's side, and I feel like as well Green Bay has the advantage in defense just by a little bit, and I feel like their defense will be able to clamp up towards the end of the game and get a big game-ending stop.
So yeah, I think that Tennessee is gonna not be able to do the thing where they jump out to a big lead and then pound the rock with Derrick Henry. I think that at some point they're gonna play from behind, and maybe you just don't want the ball in Ryan Tannehill's hands for that, for that part of the game. He hasn't proven to be incredibly clutch yet, I guess, and I just think that Aaron Rodgers will beat him like 99 times out of 100 in a shootout or throwout, and I think the Packers will end up winning a good, very offensive game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of going to be like a reality check in one way or the other for Tennessee, where they, like you said, they kind of been able to jump out with Derrick Henry and kind of control the game. All right, but moving on to the last game, Monday Night Football, we got Buffalo and New England, and I'm not really gonna get into this because it's kind of disappointing that the Patriots have missed the playoffs for only the second time in the past 20 years. But yeah, I'm gonna take Buffalo. I just don't trust us enough to beat a playoff contender right now. So I got Buffalo.
Yeah, I gotta go with Buffalo. I mean, I know they have the division and all that clinched, so you'd think some starters would be start to sit and more practice squad or secondary players would start coming in. I still feel like that Buffalo, they're going up against a division rival in the Patriots who have been kicking them for years, that they kind of want to get some licks back in while they can. So I think I got to take Buffalo here.
I agree. I think that Buffalo's definitely the superior team right now, and I don't think it'll be a pretty game to watch, especially for you Patriots fans. I think that just Josh Allen's probably going. I mean, I don't think he'll have a great game, but he'll outplay Cam Newton in my opinion, and I think that the Bills will keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Just one more thing to add. I feel like Josh Allen too. He's shown himself. Like I don't think he's gonna throw the ball at the 1 yard line and get intercepted big times like some other QBs we know. So just get on to the questions now, I guess.
All right, that was subtle. Mattias didn't even realize what was coming until like halfway, until you were pretty much almost done. All right, so yeah, moving on to questions. Mattias, you can start off with yours if you want.
So, my question is, what is up with the Steelers? Why they suddenly start losing?
I'm gonna let Mark answer this one because Mark, I know Mark
As
hates
the
the Steelers.
podcast Steelers hater, I guess I'll start this one off. I mean, I personally think, the Steelers, they're an alright team. They're definitely not the 11 win team we've seen. I mean, actually, I would say that, but I mean, the order they got it, I'm surprised it was 11 in a row, especially against the teams they were playing. I mean, they were even struggling against teams who should have been blowouts for them. And I just feel like, especially now, their offense is all just passing. Basically, at least what I've seen. I mean, in the run game, we've seen it, but with Connor out, it's been pretty bad. And I think just teams are realizing what type of team they're going against, and they're having a bit more confidence than they normally would. Ever since that loss, I feel like teams have been more confident to go up against them. So I feel like they're just not being looked at as they were earlier in the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just think I still think like their defense is still great. It's still like a top three defense in the league, and um, I feel like they like their offense was good, and then Washington kind of came in there and was like, oh yeah, so we're gonna beat you now, and that kind of paved the way for teams to be like, oh yeah, so their offense isn't great. So that I think teams have been able to kind of coach against the offense better, and I think the defense is still an issue, but I think the if teams have been able to figure out how to coach against the offense, then that's just kind of that's why they're losing.
I agree. I think that the Steelers' offense has really slowed down. I think that the run game, as Mark mentioned, has really just taken a hit with Connor out. Even when in the first place he's not elite or anything, they're just too Ben Roethlisberger reliant. He's too old. Teams have figured them out. Their defense is not quite as dominant, I think, as it was in the beginning of the year. And I never expected them to go undefeated. But definitely don't think that anyone really expected them to lose this game this week against the Bengals. And I guess, it's another team. Maybe they got a reality check now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you guys everything there. But my question now here is, will the Steelers be able to win another game this season? And I guess before you guys go, I'll just put in my 2 cents. I personally think no. I know they have the Browns coming up and the Colts, right? And I
Yep.
feel like those are 2 losses. And I mean, I feel like they're stuck in a rut. And if I were them, they're probably going to make the playoffs even if they don't win their division. And if I were them, I would just focus for playoffs and try to become a whole different team.
Yeah, well they've already clinched the playoffs, I believe, but I think they're gonna be able to win the next two games, and I say this, and that's probably not gonna happen, but like Indianapolis, I think it just comes back to what quarterback is gonna play better in Ben Roethlisberger and Philip Rivers, and I think Roethlisberger kind of has that for me at least, and then for the Browns, I think Mike Tomlin's really like he's a good coach. He he's it's a divisional rival, so I think he's going to be able to coach them well enough to beat the Browns. Even though the Browns are a totally different team than they played in whatever it was, week 7 or something. So I mean, it to me it's either way, but I think they can win out, and I think they're gonna go 13-3. But I really could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say they're going to lose one, win one. My feeling is that they win the Indianapolis game and then lose against the Browns. But, yeah, either way, I don't think they're going to win out or lose out. But, I mean, with the back before they lost to Washington, you would think that they would probably win both of these games. And I just think it's crazy how they've transformed over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, Yeah. Unless you guys have anything else to say about that one, I'm gonna move on. Um, so and just real like I'm gonna go in a completely different direction. I'm gonna focus away from the Steelers. I think I would assume that Carson Wentz is done in Philly, and I don't know what his contract is. I think he still has a few more years, so they'd have to trade him. They can't like re-sign in free agency. So I'm interested to see what you guys think. If they were to trade Carson Wentz, what do you think is the best location for him to be in to go back to being that 2017 self when he was on track to be the MVP if it wasn't for the injury?
I feel like it's going to be tough because I feel like after what we've seen, no teams really are going to be interested in him, especially with the draft coming up and all these young talents coming in to prove themselves. I feel like they'll be given a shot over of what we've seen for Wentz. But I can see him going to a place like the Jets or even like the Jaguars, some place who has a chance to draft one of the quarterbacks coming out of the draft and try to be like a mentor, get him ready. I mean, he's had playoff experience. He's been in the league for a decent amount of time now. I feel like he would be he's not like the greatest experienced player to bring in, but I feel like he would be pretty good just to help mentor some of those quarterbacks for their start of their career.
Yeah, I think he's a little young, and the fact that he's not willing to sit behind Hurts make me think he wouldn't like that very much. But I think that I see him more as a guy that might go to like a Colts or Patriots, who are not really in prime position to get one of the top 3 or 4 QBs. Like maybe at the Patriots spot, Trey Lance or something could fall to them. But I think that once you get past the top 4 QBs, I think I would take what Wentz has proved he can do over trying to draft someone else in the first round. So like the Saints, the Steelers, the Colts, someone like that who can't draft like a almost surefire QB like Trevor Lawrence. But they either looking for a good bridge guy or they're hoping to make him work with like the Steel pretty good offensive line and great wide receiver set.
Yeah, I agree. I made a list of like 7 or 8 teams that I think may make a good spot for Wentz, and like I had Jacksonville down, but they're probably gonna get Trevor Lawrence, so that's kind of out of the picture. Denver is probably another good spot. I think Drew Lock doesn't really have what it takes necessarily, but they could possibly give him another year. But maybe you bring in Wentz for the preseason. If it doesn't work out, then you cut him. And like you mentioned, New England. I think San Francisco is another good spot because I don't know if I'd rather have Carson Wentz than Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest. Um, Maybe like the Giants is kind of a stretch because Daniel Jones is somewhat decent. Like he's kind of there. I don't know if you'd want to trade for him. I have Washington because Alex Smith's not going to cut it for next year. You mentioned New Orleans, and then I think Carolina, like we talked about earlier, like Teddy Bridgewater's kind of like that bridge quarterback, no pun intended. But I think that would be a good spot to send Carson Wentz. But
I feel like
yeah,
Carson Wentz is also kind of like a bridge quarterback. I feel like he's proven himself not to be a franchise quarterback. I see him being like a short-term fill-in and skipping around the league a bit.
yeah. But if you can't like if you're a team like New England where you definitely can't get a top 3 quarterback that's proven himself, then like Justin, like if you cannot get Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance, then I don't think you draft a quarterback, and you'd probably trade for a guy like Sam Darnold, maybe even Gardner Minshew, and then Carson Wentz. So I think probably the best fit would be Indianapolis or New England, and I think Denver's another good fit for Wentz too. So yeah. All right. So I think that just about wraps it up. Unless you guys have anything else to say.
Oh, that's it.
All right. So by the time you guys are hearing this, it's probably Christmas. So Merry Christmas. Yeah. So we'll be back next week, hopefully, barring something drastic happening, and yeah, we'll talk about some more college football. If assuming you guys like that, but yeah. So we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching.